And then separately, we do want to also talk about how we don't plan on doing a patch like this ever again.
I thought I was going to be using that intro unironically, but damn, this is probably the best single update in the history of Activision Blizzard. I thought this was going to be a short video, but damn, they've really been cooking it up this whole time, boys. Like, what the... So, let's go through everything as quickly as possible, starting now. Okay, so throughout the trailer and during the agenda, they talk about how the vampiric pack system works. They talk about the same green circle where all the vampiric powers are located. They talk about Blood Harvest, which is an iteration on Helltide. And they talk about 5 new world bosses that appear in World Tier 3 and World Tier 4. They talk about how there are keys that you can access these new bosses with from Tree of Whispers and from Helltides specifically, and we'll get to that later. They're fixing resistances. You can target farm uniques from these new bosses and all bosses. They didn't really clear up if just from the new bosses specifically, but all the new bosses have very specific loot tables. You'll be able to target farm certain uniques from certain bosses, and from Duriel, Lord of Maggots, the Uber Duriel, basically, you'll be able to drop Uber uniques, and they quote said, "You'll know people with Uber uniques after this update." So that's pretty big. You know, that's pretty big because most of us have no friends. Next up, they talk about quality of life updates. You'll only need to complete the prologue in order to do the campaign skip. So in case you're wanting to play the game with friends, but you never got it when it first came out, then you're able to just jump right in, do like an hour of gameplay, and then be able to skip the campaign. It's very new player friendly, so you don't have to go through the entire campaign in order to access the seasonal content. Renown sticks from season to season now. We're going to be able to get town portal cosmetics, which is dope. They're updating uniques and aspects. More on that will come on the October 10th update stream. So they go through a vampiric power overview very quickly. There are 22 powers in total, and they're more universally applicable as opposed to the malignant heart system, which was very like class specific. Joseph said they're class agnostic, and that's a quote. The packed cost strategy, they're only applicable to armor, up to 5 for ancestral armor, and I'm assuming they are sorted into offensive, defensive, and utility categories, but it seems like the amount of these that you'll need in order to actually use certain powers very small or manageable, so in the end game it likely won't matter. So not too worried about that. We have new enemy families with new attacks. Arguably they are just reskin mobs, but up close they actually look really good. Like I don't know, Diablo 4 is a good art style. They added the Blood Seekers, which are the equivalent of Path of Exiles, you know, the unique mobs that come and basically ambush you at certain points in the game, and these are lore relevant and they look great and they seem to fit in. I'm excited to get jumped by druids and sorks and everything while I'm just going through the game. Blood Harvest versus Helltide. I know a lot of people are going to say, what's the difference? Blood Harvest is always active. It's available from level 1, and inside of these Blood Harvests you're able to turn these different kinds of currencies into these things called blood lures, which allow you to fight a certain amount of blood seekers on demand. So it gives a good amount of player agency, and blood seekers have a higher chance of dropping higher rarity materials that you'll need for your vampiric powers. And also the currency that you get within Blood Harvest is persistent through each Blood Harvest, as opposed to Helltide's Cinder Farm, which resets every Helltide. They added a new system called Hunter's Acclaim, and it's sort of a bounty board. It's very similar to the Tree of Whispers setup, but I think it's more, they didn't go too deep into it, so I don't know the exact mechanics of it. None of us do. However, I think it's going to be very rewarding. Eternal Realms and Seasonal Realms will have seasonal content from now on. Both of them will, so if you don't want to make a new character, you can always just boost up your oldest character. You don't have to refarm anything from now on. The Malignant Hearts things was one-off, apparently, so we'll see how that goes. And here they assess the content progression, and they compare the vanilla content progression from level 1 to 50, and then level 50 to 70, and then level 70 to 100. And they note that in this new content progression, level 1 to 50 is largely the same, but there's some more activities to do, so I want to worry too much about that. Level 50 to 70 is very interesting because they're boosting XP gain from Whispers and Helltides. So that's going to be, and they're gating the bosses, the exclusive bosses, the farmable bosses behind Helltides and Tree of Whispers. And so it's going to be interesting to see just how rewarding. The quote was substantially increasing experience gained from Whispers and Helltides. So we'll see just how good that is. But in addition to farming bosses at the same time, which give us target farmable uniques, well, we're going to be doing these a lot more. So there's actually a reason to do other things besides Nightmare Dungeons. And if you're worried, like, hey, Nightmare Dungeons Glyph XP is also getting boosted, it's all going to feel way better to do. And also Nightmare Dungeons also can drop a specific dungeon like boss farmable thing. We'll get to that too. Nightmare Dungeons will eventually give you access to the key that allows you to fight the beast in the ice. Helltide and Whisper bosses you need in order to access their relevant bosses, that both of those bosses end up giving you keys, like materials in order to create the Duriel endgame Uber boss key. So, and then the Duriel endgame Uber boss will, the target farmable uniques that we just talked about. World bosses and Legion events are going to be required to get the materials to do the Lord Zier seasonal boss, the Vampire Lord boss. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see how all of this goes. But apparently there's a good reason to fight each of these bosses, and they're all gated behind different relevant and rewarding content in the game. And Lord Zier, the seasonal boss, does have an exclusive loot table, so we'll see. We'll see. And these boss summon materials are tradable materials. This is arguably the biggest change within this whole. It's the biggest change for a couple of reasons. It's them acknowledging that the trading is non-existent and that trade is like pretty important in ARPGs. It makes the game way more interesting and interactive and sociable. Two, you can party up with players, so it actually incentivizes party play more in the end game. And three, it just like makes it so that you actually interact with others. Just the fact that they're acknowledging that more ways to interact with others is a good thing is a really good thing. They quote said, if you're looking for something, specific unique items, there's a boss you can fight to farm it. So that includes all the uniques that they'll be adding into the game. So I'm guessing if you want a Tempest Roar and you just go fight the Tree of Whispers boss like 7 times, then you'll get a Tempest Roar within like a couple levels. That's my assumption. However, that's not confirmed, but that's pretty amazing, to be honest. So if you're planning on making a build, all you need is a leveling build to get you to level 50 and to be able to do these bosses, and then you'll be able to transfer directly in to whatever build you really want to do in the mid game, rather than waiting until the end game, or eventually you'll just drop something. This is another quote. Almost every unique getting updated, they will be big things to hunt for, end quote. So they're probably going to make uniques actually usable outside of, Tempest Roar and other like rare cases. They're going to update all the damage buckets apparently. And more details on this are going to come on the October 10th update. General improvements. Scrolls of Escape are automatically used if you disconnect in hardcore while in combat. We'll see how the while in combat fleshes out. They quote said, even when disconnecting on purpose. So that's an important thing to think about. We won't circle back to that, but that actually gives people, like, if you've played hardcore in other RPGs before, the disconnect macros, that might actually be something that goes on. Incenses are now useful because they grant bonus experience, so crafting materials are more important now, making Tree of Whispers even better, in addition to some other changes we'll also get to later, but the bonus experience from Tree of Whispers is also scaled up now. Experience bonuses are multiplicative with world tier bonuses now, so anything. So they said, quote, it's 40% faster to get to level 100 versus season 1. And I have a sneaky suspicion it's actually faster than that if you know what you're doing, because of so many different changes. We won't connect all the dots to why I think so, but just know it's probably going to be more than 40% faster. Another quality of life update, they're adding 2 more waypoints in each zone at the start of the unlock because the renown carries over from season to season now. This is fine. It's a decent compromise. I don't know if I'd rather have every waypoint unlocked or not, but it's whatever. Just a renown reminder, make sure you go do all that renown before season 2 starts, because at level 1 you'll get 10 skill points immediately, which is massive. At level 50 we'll have 21 paragon points to spend, which basically gives you your first glyph and multiple rare nodes immediately, as opposed to just a single paragon point, making those jumps from tier 1 and 2 to tier 3 way smoother. Overworld monsters no longer trail the player's level after level 55 and 75 in World Tier 3 and World Tier 4 respectively. And we're getting 2 more additional slots. I don't know why they can't, like, just sell character slots. It's not that hard. Like, you can make a lot more money doing that. I don't know why they, I mean, I'm fine. Anything free is good. Obviously, wow, that's a shit take. Don't listen to me. And they're adding the occultist vendor at the Tree of Whispers. Nice, good change. With how much time we'll be going there with the new content gated behind Tree of Whispers stuff, and also we'll want to do it just normally anyway. This is a really good change. Stashes in all towns with waypoints now, just not major hubs. So more stash locations. Good job. Better Obel shop locations. Good job. They're artificially, I think they really took to heart the fact that we all were saying, you're just artificially increasing playtime by adding like 2 seconds to the dungeon timer. And then that kind of snowballed into them realizing, oh, hey, that kind of intricacy is also in several different areas of the game that we can tone down on. And they did it for us because they want to keep us playing. I was gonna say they love us, but they don't. They just want the bag. They're improving mounts in almost every single way. I don't know why they didn't say they were buffing the mount combat skill, the dismount combat skill specifically, but maybe they will. We'll see in the October 10th update. They're increasing responsiveness and smoothness, better gap jumping. So, you know, those small gaps, I'm guessing it'll be smoother or whatever. Higher base speed, 14% higher. Better mouse and keyboard speed control. You know, when you were like at the edge of the screen, you were like, hey, this is the fastest it can get, but it's kind of like annoying because sometimes you can forget and you have to pay attention. Anyways, that system is improved now. Boost duration is longer, 50% longer. Nice. They said, and I quote, the boost time is essentially 100% uptime. So using boost breaks through barricades now. I'm just wondering, why don't you just remove barricades? But okay, this is like a nice middle ground compromise, fine, whatever. Dismount cooldowns are halved, and the dismount combat skill cooldown is 70% faster. Nightmare dungeon changes. You can teleport directly into the dungeon. Let's go. Dungeon event monster density is increased. Let's go. Dungeon events were already great with certain builds, but now it's probably going to be insane OP, especially if you're playing Blood Search Necromancer or any like large scale like target everything type skills. Easier to guard NPCs in these rewards, so higher tier rewards on average. They won't get, they quote said they won't get one shot on higher world tiers anymore, so that's good. Your CC time will be decreased. That's what they said, quote. And they also increased readability. So everything's going to be easier to dodge, or at least visually you'll be able to recognize it, and it'll be less punishing when you do get hit and when you fail to dodge. So all around improvements. Right, and now we can talk about the Paragon Glyph XP increased from Nightmare Dungeons. So because they're making other content more relevant, they recognize that Nightmare Dungeons are going to be done less overall, and so they basically made us spend less time doing Nightmare Dungeons so we can do more time of, we can spend more time doing whatever content we want rather than just spamming these, which if you think about, like, they're thinking about the player experience more than we give them credit for, I feel like, because that is an elegant change to a problem that hadn't even been brought up yet. Not that I can recall anyway. So they're anticipating problems and improving upon the game in ways that fix those problems before they become problems for us. So I just wanted to shout out the team for Diablo 4 for that, because that's actually really impressive. Okay, they're changing Nightmare Dungeon affixes. Now, they're taking the approach of putting an emphasis on counter playability and player agency, which is a very good direction. Backstab, and as you can see, I don't want to read all of it out, but it's right there. It's right there. They're just making everything better. All the unplayable affixes, especially in hardcore, are now playable, at least to some extent. You don't really want to avoid anything. You just want to play better when you have those more difficult affixes. They're not auto salvages anymore. They completely removed objectives from a handful of dungeons. Just find the boss is the quote. that sounds insane. They placed objectives on the quote critical path through the dungeon, and you can see here that it's like that exactly fixes the problem of like when I'm brain dead late at night grinding through dungeons just trying to get level 100. I sometimes miss those corridors off to the sides, and so this fixes that. They redesigned many layouts to limit backtracking. They're still not linear, but in a good way. World events. Legion events downtime is reduced significantly. The warning timer is increased and it has better visibility to know when it's starting specifically. So all that amazing. Almost twice as many world bosses because the cooldown is nearly half. The warning timer is doubled and there's better visibility to know when it's starting just on the map. But also they said, quote, a message is broadcasted to all players when the world boss is 15 minutes from spawning, end quote. So that's big. Just knowing that they have an implementation like that now means they're probably going to have similar things in the future as well, and take like books out of like Lost Ark, you know. Anyways, it's significant. It's significant. Here's some more nitty gritty stuff. Whisper caches will always drop nightmare dungeons within 5 levels of nightmare dungeons that the highest level that the player has completed. Experience from Whispers and Helltide has been substantially increased. Whisper and Helltide caches adhere to the item slot of the cache. So boot caches only drop boots gear wise. They'll drop other stuff too, you know, but only boots from boot caches and Helltide. Whoa, what a concept. Helltide chest icons now show up on the map. So if it's a boot chest, you'll be able to see like a boot on the map or whatever. If it's a mystery chest, there'll probably be like a question mark. It's cool. It's good. UI fixes are good. And here's some more UI and UX fixes. You can now mark your gear as favorite, and it's impossible to sell favorited or salvage favorited gear. Nice. We were all asking for that. Better aspect organization. Still not good enough, but better. That's good. It's a good start. Sorting of affixes on items has been improved. They didn't go into detail what that meant, but any improvement to the UI and UX is great. Stash, search, and filter options. These look really good, Blizzard, and I feel like they're better implemented, just from what I saw, than most other games that I've seen. They added a streamer mode. It's just nice. It like hides your friends' names and your names. It's cool. And combat text filtering, so you can turn off like the words fortified or made vulnerable or things like that, so you can just have damage numbers up. So that's going to be nice. An auto run feature. This is kind of nice. It's going to be less clicking on average. The minimap is zoomed out more. Now let me just say, just give us the minimap overlay already, please. But thank you nonetheless. This fixes some of the problem. Just give us overlay already. The gem system is updated. Probably seems like a pretty decent update for it. Enchantment costs have a higher baseline, but then scale slowly rather than small baseline and then scale highly, you know. So it's overall less expensive. Crafting materials drop in place of lower item power gear in World Tier 3 and World Tier 4. So they specifically said it won't get rid of useful gear, but will get rid of a huge amount of trash gear without even using a loot filter, which is a pretty elegant solution for not implementing a loot filter in the interim. It's very nice, impressive idea, honestly, but I feel like we should just get a loot filter as well. This is actually a really nice feature, but we should also get a loot filter. Higher level monsters will be dropping higher item power gear from level 75 onward. Now, this is really, they were very specific about this. Item power minimums and maximums goes up by 2 until level 100, which will drop up to item power 920. That's the new maximum. While any level past like level 100 will increase like the bottom end of this range a very small amount. They gave the example of like 900 to 920 at maximum nightmare dungeon levels. And so it's like a very small range that you could be going for. It's just gonna make it sick. It's just gonna be sick. They didn't add higher tiers of affixes for this, but they're just wanting to add the base armor and the base weapon damage, and I think this is decent. I think it's good. I think it's good for now, because this actually gets rid of the problem, because the item power and the item like stats and everything, it's pretty exponential. So you're not gonna get the best gear in the game at level 70 anymore. You're gonna get the best gear in the game at around high 80s, low 90s, and it's gonna be pretty difficult to get like the best gear in the game consistently for each slot, for each gear slot. So you'll actually want to farm the highest content, the highest difficulty content in the game, so that you can get the best gear in the game now. Normal Whisper caches provide plus 10 item power from your current level and plus 20 from legendary caches. Helltide caches do the same as Whisper legendary caches, which is plus 20 item level. Uber uniques now always drop at max affix values. Holy shit, that's crazy. But maybe provide a small range that they can drop in my opinion. I'm not sure. Maybe that's a shit take. I don't know. I don't know. I'm happy about it. I'm gonna enjoy it. When I get my Shaco, I'm gonna be like, oh, this is sick. It's a max Shaco. So I just question it. I'm not sure why I question it. It just goes against like how every RPG has done it ever. So I'm just not sure. But it's a cool change. We'll see how it plays out. They talk about the 10.10 update, and they say that they're even going to talk about patches, the first patch after season 2 comes out, patch 1.2.1. Then they'll also have more to talk about at BlizzCon in November as well, which I'm guessing, if I had to put a guess on it, expansion time. Okay. They improved the experience with the battle pass that's going to be coming up. You automatically collect all your smoldering ashes. There are going to be multiple new seasonal blessings, which is interesting. We'll see what they are. Diablo 4 is now available on Steam, starting in season 2. And Blizzard doesn't do things like this accidentally. I want to acknowledge this. They're giving us a direct insight into the population health of the game, which is the exact opposite of what they've done with every other game, like after a certain amount of time, right? So the Diablo 4 team really is doing things differently than any other studio since the Activision merger. It's just incredible to see, like the amount of changes they're making, almost all exclusively based off player feedback, all within like a decent amount of time. You know, it's not like week after week changes, but they're blocking it all up. They said 41 pages of patch notes. We'll talk about that again, but God damn, good job, Blizzard. I like, unironically, good job. This is a big W. And then we get into the Q&A session. The question is plans for itemization. They said they're working on the side for it, but they want, quote, more endgame stuff and improvements to itemization. Someone asks, do you have plans on like improving the importance and relevance of the overworld? Because sometimes it also feels like the mount is useless after a certain point. And then they talk about how Helltide and Blood Harvest will make the mount feel more relevant and the overworld feel more relevant. I just like to see a little bit more as well. I mean, Helltide's like the coolest thing in the game, so it's cool that we have Blood Harvest, but also you should like do more stuff in the overworld, please. Someone asked any plans to uncap the glyph levels, which is an interesting question. No. They basically said they want to cap and control the very top end of player power so that it's more approachable for everybody, which I think is a good idea. They don't want like an infinite power scaling system. And I also think that that's just not a good idea, an infinite power scaling system. It should just be extremely difficult to reach the very top end. People asked, is there going to be a Paragon reset button? And they said, and I quote, they said it out loud while also doing it, wink. So we'll later. Someone asked Uber unique stat improvements, and they said check in later. So probably yeah. Alongside, I'm guessing what they meant is the next development stream on October 10th is gonna go over balance changes and everything. Someone asked, can you use the stash search function for aspects and affixes specifically? And they said, yes, that's dope. Someone asked any plans on improving the clan system in the future? And they said, yes, we want to in the future. But right now, I think they're doing the most important stuff. So I would also like to see clan improvements, like something to do. Somebody asked, are you going to add more uniques into the game? Yes, and different ways to farm them and more legendary aspects too. Somebody asked about the difficulty comparison between Uber Duriel and Uber Lilith, and they quote said little bit easier. The reasoning being is because Duriel takes a key to access, so they don't want that. They don't want failing to feel too bad. And it gives a good idea of the mindset that they're approaching the game with, actually. So I like it. Somebody asked, will content come to the Eternal Realm from seasons moving forward? Yes, we talked about that before. Somebody asked specific Nightmare Dungeon sigil crafting, like target crafting, and Antonio said, we're thinking about it holistically. We don't have an answer yet, but they are thinking about it. Somebody asked about improvements on the readability of boss attacks. Yes, there have been across the board. This seems to be the case. Somebody asked, are we going to be able to save builds to a wardrobe like in Diablo 3? And they replied, we'd like to add that in the future. They've been thinking about it, yes. Somebody asked, are there plans for an in-game trade interface so you don't have to use third-party programs and the like Discord? They said, player analytics are making us think about what we want to do. Somebody asked about Codex of Power improvements, like the organization and everything. They said, we want to, and we'll have more ideas like that in the future. So I'm guessing they're thinking of like an elegant way to implement something better that doesn't disrupt their current legendary aspect system, even though I kind of feel like it should be disrupted. It's not that good of a system, to be honest. Somebody asked about leaderboards. Dumb fuck, they already said season 3. Don't you watch every live stream ever made? Somebody asked, do I have to buy the game again on Steam? They said, if you want to play it on Steam, yes, you do have to buy another copy. If you want to continue to play it on the Battle.net launcher, no, you don't. I know this is probably not the answer we all wanted, because I would personally rather play it on Steam so that I could get like achievements, or it'll be easier to... I don't know why. I just prefer Steam. Like, why isn't every game just offered on Steam? You fuck. Someone asked for the item level drop clarification on Uber Duriel. There was a little bit of confusion. So Uber uniques will always drop at eye level 920. Rare items have the normal range 845 to 920. From Uber Duriel specifically. Insane. Somebody asked, are there any plans for rotating the nightmare dungeon, the set of nightmare dungeons within a season rather than like per season? Nah. Somebody asked about stash tab changes, like more additions, and Joe Shelley said, we recognize there continues to be a need for improvements in the inventory management system. We'll continue to make improvements in this area. Go fuck yourself. No, he didn't actually say go fuck. But yes, that they're probably trying to create like a back end fix that won't disrupt other systems in the game, because you just imagine how fucking bungled the code is because we load everybody's items all together. It's ridiculous. So they're probably trying to untangle the tangle. It's like fish wire. Anyways, they said tune back in on the 10th of October for all class, gear, and gameplay balance changes. So numbers specifically for nerds like me, and updates, as well as patch 1.2.1, and the patch notes will be available immediately after that stream. It is 41 pages of patch notes. That's what they said. They said currently 41 pages of patch notes. They also said that the season 1 and season 2 will be ending and starting on the same day respectively, and it will all happen at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, October 17th. I don't know about the rest of you guys, but I was cautiously optimistic for this stream. Even in the slightest, I wasn't hype. I was not hype. I'm pretty hype now. I am pretty hype now. I can't wait for season 2 to come out, honestly. Check back in about a week or so and we'll have another one of these videos up. See you then.